Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is Laura Jane, recording at the glorious and always effervescent Thunderbird Analog Recording Studio in sunny South Oceanside. And it's time for another podcast. I have one of San Diego's premier conduits for rock and roll knowledge, connection of friends and bands and festivals and fun. The ever jolly Mr. Tim Pyles is with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Woohoo!
Oh, stop.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. It's so nice to see you and have me at this wonderful place.
Isn't it cool?
It's pretty magical.
It is.
And tamales, too? Oh, my.
Oh, yes. Well, that's how we do it. We want you to feel comfortable, full after that long journey to Oceanside from San Diego.
I talk about that long journey a lot, and I'm not up here a whole often, so thanks for getting me up to Oceanside. I went and stopped by Spin Records.
Oh, excellent. Carlsbad.
Yeah, I love Spin Records.
Yeah. You can do the lose on the way home.
Exactly.
And have a double bonus. Did you buy any records?
Guess what I bought?
What?
If I give you a name, I'm going to hope you guess the name of the album, because I think this person really only released one album. That individual would be Marlo Thomas. Danny Thomas's daughter.
I did not know she was a recording artist.
There's a wonderful album.
Oh, yes. Free to Be You and Me.
Thank you very much. I bought it. It was a record store day release, and they still had it there at Spin Records. I think it's on pink and blue vinyl, and it's one of 3,000 copies of the reissue of Free to Be You and Me, which was an early adopter of the message of equality, gender equality. So it's kind of a neat little thing. And I probably even have the original somewhere in my vinyl collection, but strangely, I was drawn to it, and now I own this beautiful, pristine copy of Free to Be You and Me by Marlo Thomas and a bunch of other people. Alan Alda's on it. And
Rosie Greer, it's all right to cry. Yeah. Crying gets the sad out of you. It's all right to cry.
So you know it.
It's going to make you feel better.
Yeah. We all need that in our life, don't we?
I loved that album when I was a kid. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think of it right off the bat when you said Marlo Thomas. But, you know, I was thinking, she didn't do like Boots Are Made for Walking or something like that or some.
Everybody tries to be so cool and obscure, and no way, dude. Free to be you and me, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody needs hugs.
And, you know, she had Phil.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
And of course, her dad was Danny Thomas, Hollywood legend as well. So, but I digress. Anyway, I got it, and I'll be enjoying that on my record player.
Well, I love that you still spin the vinyl.
Yes. Well, it's rare that I buy music, thankfully working for a radio station and having radio shows that my job is to play music. I'm loaded down with music, digitally or CDs or some records. So it's kind of nice to have that. But it is weird because we're quickly becoming this whole streaming cloud world. And I have one of those Alexa devices in my house, and I can just ask her to play things, and I don't have to go look for it. Or it's kind of lazy, I know, but it certainly is nice.
Well, I tell you, there's a trick that I've learned since I've been reintroduced to vinyl that I forgot about from the 80s, throwing parties in the 80s, and you had to turn the record over.
Sure.
Right? Like if you're going to play the whole album.
Yeah.
And when the record's done, it gives you an opportunity to say, oh, excuse me, I've got to go turn the record over, you know? So you're in the middle of a party and you're flitting from this person to this person, and you're like, I've got to go turn that record over. Yeah. I'm sorry. I wanted to talk more about your bunions, but I got to go do this. I'm sorry.
Hopefully you didn't have one of those stackable record players that would then just go to the
No,
the
I didn't. I had one of those in the early 60s.
Really?
Yeah, my parents
Thank you. I understand.
Yes. And so we would stack them up then.
Stack them up.
Stack them up. Stacks. So let's talk a little bit about what is happening for you right now, because when I met you, you were at 94.9 the first time. Yeah. Now you are back on 91X where you originally started. I know that. And you're doing 2 shows on 91X right now. You're doing the Loudspeaker, which is my favorite way to spend a Sunday night.
Thank you.
Listening to all the new bands and old bands and their new releases and special theme nights and your interviews. And
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to support this music scene.
It's great. It's so cool to hear that. I know that you're out in the community too, but that station and that show, that time slot is just like perfect. And then you're also doing the new music show, FTW, which I'm thinking, is that a take on your old FTP?
Sort of, yes. I still have the FTP show, which is something separate that exists on a station in Laguna Beach. KX 93.5.
I didn't even know about that.
That can be heard Saturday afternoons. It's just an hour-long thing that I produce for them. And then that same show kind of airs on another one called the Independent FM. That's more of a online station. But yeah, this little station in Laguna Beach, which is kind of like a non-commercial radio station, they run this new music show. So I have FTP for F. Tim Pyles,
right,
originally named by Mike Halloran. And then FTW, which then was, kind of a take on FTP, but you could say it's F the World or For the Win. You take your pick. It's all about new music, Sundays at 11 p.m.
That's right. And that's more of a global approach to new music.
Yeah.
Not necessarily confined to San Diego proper.
No, like this last show, I played brand new music from Nine Inch Nails, Ziggy Marley, Mad Caddies. Yeah, and then new bands that people haven't heard of yet. That's what it's all about. New music discovery.
I love discovering with you.
Yes, thank you.
I've also discovered that you still do your Monday nights at the Casbah.
They kind of used to have a name, but I don't typically book every Monday for Tim Mays, but I'm there every Monday. So it's kind of my office hours. I used to call it Anti-Monday League.
Right.
It's still kind of, I guess, a thing. But any given Monday, it could be a show Tim Mays booked. It could be local bands, could be touring bands, or could be a night I book.
And you help him book on various nights.
Sure. If he comes to me, like recently, he asked for bands to play with kind of this indie folk project, The Wild Reeds. So if I'm not familiar with the bands, I go look them up, and then I try to find the best local bands that should fit with them. And, usually that's an opportunity for a local band to get a little more exposure.
You also give a lot of exposure to bands on Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
On your night at the Muro.
The Muro, that is...
in Hillcrest. Hillcrest's only live music place.
It is, and it's such a weird place because you could go there one night and it might be goth night. You might go there one night and it might be bear night. Some nights it could be a drag queen night. Or, yes, local music. So I love it. It's probably the most diverse club in San Diego. And Paul over there, he loves local music, so he really provides an outlet. And let me tell you, people, there is parking at the Muro. That's the one thing I ever hear about the problem with the Muro is the parking. And there's parking always, and you can find parking at the DMV, which is really a short walk away. So don't be afraid and don't use that as an excuse to not visit the Muro.
Plus, all the smart people take a Lyft or an Uber anyway.
You can't complain about parking anymore because, if you're going out for a night of fun and having a few drinks, you shouldn't be driving, and you can get dropped off right in the front, just like a high roller out of a limousine. It just might be a Prius.
Or a minivan.
Yeah, I wouldn't get in a minivan. At least if it had windows, I'd be okay with it.
Well, it's funny because Thomas drives Lyft in our minivan.
Okay. You could be picked up by a Paladin?
Yes, you could be picked up by a Paladin.
What's on the jukebox in that car?
Well, see, when I DJ on the Hornblower,
yes,
he'll sometimes come down with me and drop me off and go driving and then come back and pick me up.
Genius.
Yeah, well, he doesn't get treated like a rock star. I'm not happy about that, but whatever.
But what's in the stereo in the car?
Oh, well, he's been playing this George Shearing with Nancy Wilson.
Oh, very nice.
Soothing
I would think
jazz.
he would force feed them Paladins.
Now, your favorite bands listed on your website. The
Sure.
Specials.
Yep.
Love them. Queens of the Stone Age.
Sure.
Love them. Rocket from the Crypt.
Yep.
Local Heroes.
Sure.
Love them. But I'm not really familiar with Primal Scream or the Horrors. What are those? What are they all about?
They're both English bands.
Okay.
Primal Scream comes out of kind of this Manchester scene that there were bands that came out of the rave scene then in the late 80s, early 90s in the UK, and they were a big part of that. The thing with Primal Scream, though, is where they had, it's very 60s influenced stuff for the most part, but they've been chameleons in their 30-year career or something like that.
They're still together?
Oh, yeah. I go see them as much as I possibly can. And it's a mixture of everything from Happy Mondays, a band you might remember from back then, to the Rolling Stones. And they have an album in the middle somewhere that's very electronic, has a little bit of a Chemical Brothers feel to it. But I'm just a huge fan of Bobby Gillespie, the singer in the band. He was the original drummer for the Jesus and Mary chain.
Okay.
And he's just one of those iconic frontmen that just has that swagger and mystery and a little bit of recklessness, and they're a great band. Now, the Horrors are a more recent band from the UK. When I first heard them, they were like this crazy garage rock band, but they've morphed into this dark, ethereal, somewhat goth-leaning, a little bit of cinematic Radiohead qualities, and they're just a super cool band.
You said the first time that you heard them, did you hear them live or recorded first?
Recorded, yeah.
Okay.
And then finally saw them, and by that time they played San Diego. They were morphing into this other band, and that was the only time I saw them play those songs, those first songs, because they were already becoming this much more cinematic band, and those songs were much more, lose your shit kind of rock and roll, spaz out like seeing the Schizophonics or something. And then it became this. But I love both of it. It's weird. That's where my music taste is. I mean, I can love this spastic garage rock, but also this much more cerebral kind of a sounding thing. So they're a great band. Check out the Horrors.
The Horrors. Now, you used to have a band yourself called the Banana Seeds.
You have to say it right, because there was a question mark at the end.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So I don't know if they put it in there right where you might have gotten that information. But we were a band, and yes, we had a short-lived existence, and you would have said it like the Banana Seeds. So there was a question mark at the end, and it was a close buddy of mine for many years. And then the strange thing was our frontman was DJ Ratty, who is locally known kind of for quite a few years as the king of funk and soul and rare groove. He's a DJ. You can find him pretty much at Bar Pink. I know he spins around town other places. But, he harkens back to a time when we had this great club in town called the Green Circle Bar. And the Green Circle Bar was kind of like this acid jazz vibey space that was downtown and existed for a while, and then just like a lot of cool things in San Diego come and go. And that was one of them. So anyway, Ratty, this black guy with crazy dreads, who you can see spin at Bar Pink, he was our front man. Nothing ever was properly recorded, but we actually had songs, and the coolest thing ever was we played a show when Jim McGinnis was let go from KGB, Jim McGinnis being the first champion of local music in San Diego, one of the first, and they'd let him go, so there was a big party for him at the Catamaran, and a bunch of bands paying homage to him, and we got invited to play. And the cool thing about that was John Reese was there from Rocket from the Crypt and actually saw us perform, and he complimented us, so that's enough, I'm done. Boom, mic drop.
5 gigs and I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. We might have a reunion tour of dive bars in East County.
Oh, that would be fabulous. Wong's Dragon Room, I highly recommend as a dive bar in East County.
I live really close to that place, and forever I've always thought that could be one of the coolest venues in San Diego. Like a hip spot, kind of, like a cool rock and roll spot. And I don't think it's ever become what it truly could be. I remember seeing the Dragons there years ago. I think that was my first introduction. But it so deserves to just be this place that's a destination for a different crowd than the crowd it gets.
I play there probably 6-7 times a year.
Yeah?
And we draw from all
you do?
over.
Okay, nice.
And it's always a mix of people. I can draw from Hillcrest and then all the East County people because I lived in La Mesa for quite a while. One of the things I like about it is there are no rules for me there. they would never say, oh, you shouldn't say that on stage.
Right.
They just let you do whatever.
I just wish some of the local bands that play Casbah Soda Bar and these various venues, it deserves to be a place like that, you know, on a regular basis, not just when all of a sudden the Tighten Ups play or other bands. I'd like the idea of it being a regular spot because it's funky. It's just a funky spot. You know, there's nothing like in San Diego. And by the way, they had a huge fire in the restaurant. It's been closed for quite some time. The restaurant is now open.
That is right.
You can go to the bar, you can go to the restaurant, and in between the bar and the restaurant is a very peaceful little Zen garden. So go enjoy all of it. And it is a cool spot in La Mesa. And La Mesa's coming up.
Yeah, the Riviera room is just popping, the turquoise room in the Riviera.
And in downtown La Mesa, I'm now doing all ages shows at a public square coffee house. It's right there in downtown La Mesa. And it's a cool little coffee house. And they're doing DJ nights, comedy, book readings, music. So I just did an all ages show there last week. And it's a neat little spot, public square coffee house right next to Hoffer's Cigar Bar, so you can go and have an adult beverage if you're over 21, but there's a nice little bar next door.
That's really great to hear about another all-ages venue.
Yeah, this guy's trying.
It's really cool because, you know, the kids are our future, Tim. We want them to like rock and roll. Mm-hmm. This podcast is brought to you by Hapnyn. Looking for something to do? Whether it's live music, dancing, theater, comedy, karaoke, trivia night, burlesque, interpretive dancing, you name it, you can find it on hapnyn.com. Visit hapnyn.com to find out what's happening near you. Hey, do you still do your live broadcasting from the Atari Lounge?
That's been a while since we've done one of those. That was definitely more of a regular thing for a while with 94.9.
Do you do remotes anywhere, or do you just keep it to the studio?
Yeah, just in the studio. It's been a while since we've done anything like we used to do. The funnier thing is years ago, when I was first at 91X, before 94.9 existed, Loudspeaker used to be on at midnight on Monday nights.
Wow.
Not nearly as listenable as Sunday nights at 7 p.m., of course. So Monday nights, midnight. And that was also my in, because I had a key card. I was a runner for the company, and I was interning for 91X. But I made the conscious decision to show up every Monday night for Loudspeaker. And I did. Well, I eventually took it over. May not have had that opportunity if that show wasn't on Mondays at midnight. Like, that was my in. And then, of course, with 94.9 coming to be, they moved Loudspeaker to compete with what they created over there. And so that's when Loudspeaker got put on Sundays at a much more listenable hour, which is nice. It's like, it's respect to the music community rather than burying it on Mondays at midnight, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of other people can...
Yeah, I mean, somebody
tune in.
random is going to get turned on to a local band heading home from dinner with mom or whatever. So that's kind of a neat thing.
So Loudspeaker is coming upon their 30th anniversary.
Happening right now.
Happening even now?
As we speak. Woo! This is a celebration speaking to you. 1988. It started with Marco Collins. Marco Collins is kind of a legend in alternative radio, not just here in San Diego, but he went on to Seattle, and he was super involved in the grunge movement happening at the time. He was on the big alternative station. He would get personal phone calls from Courtney Love. He was the first guy to play Nirvana's music off of a cassette tape. Like, he was there in the midst of that revolution, which, you know, he was a part of the San Diego scene too and did some great things back then, but he left. And so Lou Niles was doing the show for a while, and then he left and a couple other guys did it. Then that's when I came in. And then I had a co-host for a little bit from Al Guerra, who had left 94.9. And then I got a DUI in a company car in 2004 and got fired from 91X. It was awesome. And thankfully to Mike Halloran and Garrett Michaels, 8 months later, I was hired at 94.9. And I was there almost 10 years hosting the local 94.9. It was kind of cool. I kind of thought any radio career I had was crushed when I got that DUI in South Park leaving the whistle stop in a vehicle registered to Clear Channel, but no, it was not the 91X van with the logo on it or anything silly like that. But yeah, it was a dumb move, but I like to share that experience so people don't make that same move.
That's why I show pictures of my kid. No, I'm kidding.
We're here all week.
Yeah, you do know how to bounce, Mr. Bumble. You bounce into a new opportunity. It's your charm, your personality, your accessibility, your musical tastes, your willingness to put up with really bad farts in a studio.
I don't smell anything yet.
Not from me. I meant just in general, every Sunday.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Rock and roll bands.
There's a particular experience I had once where a member of a band farted and there was no warning. And I swear it was so thick that I didn't quite see it, but I swear it hit me when my mouth was open. And it was the nastiest thing ever. And that guy was banned from the studio permanently until he snuck in recently. He was banned from 94.9, but technically he was banned from 91X too as well, because that band continues where I went. I forget what band he's in now, but anyway, that band came and he showed up, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing in here? But I let it slide. He put a cork in it. Ha!
And luckily he didn't let one slide.
Yeah, exactly.
I got off track a little bit. I wanted to talk about the 30th anniversary celebration.
That's what I meant to say, talking about the show. So Marco Collins starts it in 1988, and we are celebrating the start of the show. When it first started, it was a feature on a new music show called Listen to This, and it was a one-song or a one-band feature. So Marco would take a band somewhere and interview them on a cassette recorder. So one of the cassettes, he showed a picture, the band Pitchfork at SeaWorld in August of 1988. We're trying to figure out the first airing of Loudspeaker as a feature and then Loudspeaker as a full show. But it is 1988 that it premieres on 91X. We're 30 years later, and July 31st, the city of San Diego is going to recognize 91X Loudspeaker with 91X Loudspeaker Day.
Yay!
Thank you, David Alvarez in the mayor's office for that.
That's fantastic news.
So we might do a show that night to celebrate. We are doing shows every month that we're trying to honor and hopefully get some reunion shows of some bands that haven't played for a long time. And these are bands that were closely associated with it. My beginnings of Loudspeaker, one band is Agent 51. We've got The Classified and Swindle, and I've been key in helping to facilitate that with Rob Perlman of Alphabet Records. And those are three bands that people have been waiting a long time to see from the late 90s, early 2000s.
During the Casbah's 25th anniversary, I mean, how many bands?
Guess what's coming up?
And the 20th anniversary, too.
30th is in January, so Casbah is going to have some things up their sleeve, I believe, to celebrate their impact in this community. So excited to see what Tim Mays has. I've heard a rumor about No Knife. That would be a band I would love to have celebrate Loudspeaker with us. But if that doesn't happen with us, we'll allow it to celebrate the Casbah.
We'll just allow
without
it.
the Casbah, San Diego is nothing. I believe Tim Mays used to manage
Tim Mays
Paladins.
Was the Paladins' very first manager.
Yeah. Isn't that great? That's amazing history in San Diego.
It really
I don't know
is.
if everybody knows that. So you learn something new every day, people.
And you forget something every day.
Stop it.
Did I put my keys? The San Diego show on NBC that you're a part of, you've been doing that for how long now?
It's been a few years. It's crazy. It's been longer than 5 that the show's been on, and it's crazy. It's a great program. It's really fun to be a part of it and get to interview people that I've admired that I don't maybe necessarily have access to through my radio show, but sometimes I do. Last week I did a double whammy. I did a session with this guy from Toronto, Canada, Danko Jones, and then I interviewed him for San Diego later that night at Brick by Brick when he played. So that's like the perfect day for me of supporting an artist I like and want more people to know about in San Diego. So, it's kind of neat too because I've made a connection a little bit with him, hanging out, doing the session. That makes that second interview even that much better.
That's so cool. Yeah. I bet he really appreciated that.
I hope so. It's always hard to tell with artists sometimes.
Really? They don't show their gratitude?
They do and they don't. I mean, I think some of my favorite artists aren't nearly as gregarious as you and I are. They can be somebody completely different from on stage to off stage.
That's very true.
And Danko he's a little bit more reserved and soft-spoken off stage. When you see him on stage, it's a rock and roll circus. I mean, he's talking you up in between songs, and it's very interactive and fun.
And a little bit shy in real life.
In real life, yeah.
So at the San Diego things that you attend, it always looks like it's just kind of wild. They're usually like really a lot of people. And
yeah.
Do you have any like crazy backstage stories from while those are getting taped, or is everyone on their best behavior because they know they're going to be on TV?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, I remember a Halloween party we did that was at the office, and that was with the Frights, gosh, a long time ago, really. I just remember that being very chaotic because it was the perfect meeting of Halloween weekend and great bands, and it was just awesome. But they're all awesome. I mean, we get around to different clubs. It's super fun. We used to be sponsored by Jack Daniels, so that meant you got a couple adult beverages from Jack Daniels. Now it's Mason Ale Works, so you get a couple free adult beverages in the beer form. But yeah, it's kind of cool, I mean, we need more support of local music. San Diego has been doing some great things with showcasing bands. Like if a band has a video, they should reach out to Eric Page, the producer, and he'll feature you on the show probably. Over the years, man, I've interviewed Jesus and the Mary Chain, The Fall, Slayer, most recently Danko Jones, this band Ezra Furman. And so it's fun. I mean, I just love music. And honestly, I never thought I'd be a news cameraman. I went to school for like radio, TV stuff, but I was a 30-year-old intern. That was like 8 or 9 years after I'd kind of studied for media broadcasting. But I thought that's what I'd be, a cameraman. I never thought I'd be the guy on camera. Look at this face.
I know.
My mom told me a face for radio. I'm kidding. But yeah, it's fun to get to do that stuff.
I think your face is adorable.
Well, thank you.
A smile in your eyes all the time.
And I've marketed that. I have my own stickers and my own stencil, and I have my own face tattooed on my back. Yes, bitches. Don't be a hater. It's all in good fun.
Oh, I love it.
I'm full of myself, and I have my own back.
Well, you're making me even more of a fan right now, Tim.
Stop it.
Let me tell you. Now, you've seen a lot of great local bands try really hard to make it. And something that always mystifies me when I see somebody that I think is just so great, and they try, and they just can't make anything happen. And then some bands, it just seems effortless, and all of a sudden there's songs in a movie and this and that, and they're not trying nearly as hard as the other guy. What do you think it will take for today's artists to go from zero to hero?
It's very easy to get caught up in San Diego and achieve something here and think that you're the shit, and that's about as far as you go. The whole licensing thing, there's all these other things. It isn't about a record deal anymore. That's not the end-all, be-all. If anything, you want maybe your song in a Twizzlers ad or in a prime moment in a film or TV show. But yeah, I don't think there's any master plan anymore, but I think I'd like to see more bands be smarter about how they do it in San Diego. I think we never had this problem before, but now with all these venues and still not enough music fans, I think bands need to be smarter about how often they play and where and when they play. I like to see more bands stick around for the other band's shows and see that community get developed. I think the biggest thing is you got to get out of San Diego. People get kind of stuck here, so that's a big issue. But then some weird things are happening. Bands that maybe look at it as a business, that might have a manager if they're lucky enough, can make some stuff happen. But I don't know what the answer is anymore. Like, licensing seems to be a genius thing to focus on if you get your music featured in something rather than hoping Capitol Records is going to sign you. But there seems like there's a lot of those opportunities. I mean, Singing Serpent in San Diego has their whole jingle element. They're creating music for Super Bowl commercials, and then you got somebody like Jason Hanna from the Bullfighters, and he gets a song featured on Archer. I don't know if they're doing it or somebody's discovering them sometimes,
An appearance like that of your song in a thing is great exposure for you, but it doesn't really mean that you're out of San Diego yet.
Right.
Because you could be self-producing in your very own bedroom. I mean, I know that we have families, and a lot of people don't leave because they've got kids to raise and, that kind of thing. And you don't want to go on tour unless you're very, very, very driven.
I don't want to leave. I'm happy here.
Yeah, I love it.
I want to travel a little bit, but...
I do love traveling, but I love San Diego, and every time I leave, I want to come back.
Yeah.
I love it. There's so much happening here, which is what we're trying to focus on for Hapnyn.com as well.
What's happening?
And you can follow Tim Pyles, apparently in Laguna, on what's the call letters again?
KX93.5, Saturdays.
And then the FTW show is
Sunday night, 11 p.m., 91X, straight out of TJ. And Loudspeakers at 7, local music.
And you play the overnight sometimes, too, on 91X.
On the weekends, yeah. So if you're leaving a concert on Friday, early Saturday, you might catch me on your drive home.
Well, give my love to Chloe and Mojo and Macy and Calvin and Maya and Sharon and Apollo.
So the first 5 are dogs, Sharon's the wife, and Apollo's the snake. To clarify.
He's a family guy. Well, congratulations on 30 years of Loudspeaker, and keep on rocking, Tim Pyles.
I love this town. It's great to be a part of an institution like Loudspeaker, and I want to give shout-outs to my current hosts, Lou Niles and Andrew Rowley, the guy that created it, Marco Collins, Rob Wise, Jason Riggs, Al Guerra. There's a few other people, but those are some linchpins and kingpins who have been a part of Loudspeaker, and I thank all of them.
It's the Tim Pyles episode. Let's hug it out, bitch.
Thank you.
Yay!